Here we are for another exciting episode. And today we have a guest that both Sarah and I have known in passing, not deeply, but our kids all went to elementary school together. And when we were doing this podcast, we got to know him better because he's adopted and started giving us great tips and actually made the connection to Rebecca Autumn for us, which led to Nancy Verrier. And so we just love him. And here he is, Eric David.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the work you two are doing, which is important to get these
Thank you.
stories told.
Yes,
Um,
very.
and I'll just jump right into mine real quick. With the beginning at the start was I was born in Queens, in Booth Memorial Hospital, February 1966. Booth hospitals were run by the Salvation Army. And they also had Booth homes for unwed mothers right next door. So I was given through the adoption agency Spence Chapin, which is still around as well.
Are they
Booth
a
is
private
they are
adoption agency?
private, and they were, I think, more of a Protestant. I think it was broken up by Jewish, Catholic, Protestant in those days. So same with the hospital as well. There was Catholic charities, there were Jewish hospitals and homes, and this was more of a Protestant one. Spence Chapin, yes, is private, and then I was adopted by my parents in April 1966. So I was with a foster mother for a couple of months.
And your parents were they reproductively challenged or did they
Yeah.
have biological kids or what? Yeah.
Right. So, Bob and Linda David, and I'm the eldest of three. I have two younger sisters. So then my next youngest sister is also adopted, and then our youngest sister is not. Is the natural
Isn't that always
child,
how
so to
that
speak.
goes, right?
I think that the drugs kicked in, or it was a fluke. But that's who I call and will call today. My mom and my dad. That's
Yeah.
who raised me. We were told young, you would think that the natural daughter, the youngest, is adopted because she doesn't look anything like the rest of us, and we all kind of look more like each other. She's a redhead, and you would think she was the one that was brought in from a foster home.
Especially if she's
Anyway.
redheaded, to put it cliche, right?
Yeah, the redheaded bastard child. So we were all told young, and my parents always said that they would support both of us to search. I've never really needed financial support, and I never wanted to hire a private detective or anything at that level. I've done all my own research and found things myself. So they tried hard, my parents, for us to all feel equal and equally loved, and no one was any different, and did a great job at that. I think me and my siblings have good relationships to this day. And it was, the usual stormy childhood type stuff, but it was never, we never got into that sort of like, you're not my real dad kind of stuff. That was just never something that came up. And I was never really interested in searching until I had my own child later. But I did sort of have a lot of the issues that, later when I started to search, I read the PRIMAL WOUND, which you guys are going through.
Yeah.
The emotions that she describes, I just felt like totally seen, totally just describing all these things. But most above all, it's sort of the inability to articulate or to feel the emotions. Having an emotional numbness has been a characteristic of me, and a sort of emotional distancing. So that's a coping mechanism. But
you mean like in your interpersonal relationships, or just in general in life, or?
Yeah, and I mean, as a male, obviously anger is easy for me to show and express. But I, through therapy, learned later that I've been depressed all my life. Also, that's a big thing for adoptees, is the sadness, the hurt.
Somebody described it, and I really related to this, as a core unhappiness.
Yes.
And for sure,
I feel like it's something you're just marinated in, and swimming in all your life. It's almost like, and I never felt like I ever felt anxiety as much as depression. And it's just that I didn't know what anxiety even felt like, or that I was feeling it. But it was usually that fear of abandonment, being the good kid, until I went to college, and then I went completely off the rails. But I was like,
pictures. Those are the
pictures for the
website.
Oh my God. Yeah. Those frat parties. At least there wasn't social media back then. I mean, there's no way I'd get a job.
I'm always grateful for that.
Me too. All three of us.
And I was also the oldest child. So birth order sort of also added to being the good child, or, the responsible one. But even high school, college, I only had a couple of relationships. I had a lot of trouble with, and still do, with emotional attachments, and that goes for friends as well as lovers, girlfriends, wives, wife. So that's something that's just been an issue all along. And I tend to have a couple of really, really close guy friends, but and I have tons of like Facebook friends, but not anything really significant, other than a couple of really, really close guy friends.
I find that the distant friends, like the Facebook and all that, for me is easier sometimes than digging in deep with people.
Sure.
You're striking a lot of chords with me, how I felt as a child, because I seem really happy, and probably Sarah too. You think, oh, they're funny, they're happy, but I always had that feeling, sadness, and
I sort of feel I was very shy, but it was seen as aloof and even arrogant. But it was low self-esteem that fueled that. That was, body image is listed in Nancy's book. That's been I've been overweight most of my life, and that's been an issue, not wanting to take my shirt off at the beach and things like that. It's like, well, who doesn't have body image problems? Maybe a lot of people do, but a lot of these things, just once you check them all off, like not fitting in, having identity issues, being a chameleon, trying to fit in everywhere, all things to all people, even the connection with pets. And I have this doll I've kept all my life, a little dog that I was given when I was pretty much after I was adopted. So I still have it. It's all beat up like the Velveteen Rabbit, but just those things are like listed in the book, and I'm like, oh yeah, I still have Wooey.
Yeah.
And there's Woody behind you, if you can see
it. And then I studied philosophy at first in school, and then journalism, but I've always been sort of interested in the fact that I could have had a totally different life, been a different person if I'd been kept, or if another person had adopted me, or if they had
that's that weird thing.
I was born before Roe v. Wade, but there were still options, as they put it. So I could have not existed at all. So
it's a trip to think about those things, isn't it?
And I'm more cerebral typically than emotional, but that has been sort of that adds to the depression in a way, because it's sort of this idea of nothingness or sliding doors where you could have taken a totally different path in life.
Oh yeah.
So those were feelings I had all felt, and I only we had our first son Chandler in 2000. So I read The Primal Wound pretty soon after that, because that's when I started getting interested, and it was early internet. So there were some groups for adoptees, so you could do a little bit of research and have a little bit of also emotional support. So I joined some of those, and then contacted my parents. My dad had a small sheet of paper. He had scribbled notes from the agency in a felt tip pen. So I learned that my mom was 21, had gone to Italy, and my birth mom was 21. My birth dad was also 21, but Italian. And it just had some very basic information about her and her life. And it's just that they couldn't work out plans for marriage, and she wanted to finish her education, and it's a common story back then. And then I also wrote Spence Chapin and got more like a 2-page letter, went into a lot more detail about the maternal grandparents and their lives, their height, age, not identifying anything, but basically the
non-identifying information.
Yeah. So it added a little more color and detail. So I feel like I'm coloring it. One of those adult coloring books is like you're slowly getting color to what was just a sort of vague, blurry
Outline.
image.
Yeah.
I do a lot of writing, and I've always said I feel like my life started with a question mark. Like it's just no definition, and I've been slowly giving that more definition, more words and images. So the records, as you all know, closed in New York, or were at the time I was searching. So I basically felt like I wasn't going to learn a lot. And then I found there's this loophole in New York where the birth certificate that my parents were given after I was adopted, this birth certificate number matches the original. They didn't change the number. And in the records of birth in the Office of Vital Records in the New York Public Library, you can go in and there are these huge actual analog books. You can find the information, but I mean, you have to go line by line.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And I started at the letter A. It's all 5 boroughs, and I have to just would see February, my date, birth date, and then male, and then number. Okay, doesn't match.
You're literally an investigator.
And I'm going
between the agency,
line by line by line. And I started at the letter A, and at the end of the day, they're like, "We're closing in 15 minutes," and I'm at the end of the letter B. After 8 hours of mind-numbing staring at these books. And I was so frustrated. And then I was just like, there's my birth date, male, number matches. What? The number matches. Wait, hey, here I am. And it said Burgess. And it said male Burgess, like Anthony Burgess, the writer. So that is all I had. And I thankfully at least got it by the end of the day, and it wasn't like last name starting with W, and I would have been there forever. So we had another child, Dylan, and we made that his middle name, just as I thought that's all I was ever going to find out, because I didn't think the records would ever open. And this is way before DNA testing existed.
Ancestry and all that. Yeah.
So you all both know Dylan passed away in 2013 after a long battle with brain cancer, but it was having children and having someone that looks like me. That was a new experience that everyone has growing up, but that I didn't. And that was something that was really sort of the first thing. And also then when Dylan was sick, they were asking, do you have a medical history of cancer or things like that? And I couldn't answer those questions.
When Dylan was sick, did you get into like, was there more of an immediacy of trying to figure it out a little bit?
Somewhat. And it's a shame that, my birth mother never got to meet him. But I've told his story pretty thoroughly. And there's tons of pictures and videos online. I kept a blog on going for the whole thing. It was sort of still kind of early for the internet. I was actually working at MySpace at the time, and so used social media to actually get the word out. And
Tom at MySpace.
Yeah, that's right. He didn't ruin the democracy or anything. So he's a good guy. So then nothing, I didn't think anything was gonna, I got some of that information from the agency, but I didn't really get anything more. And this is the only identifying information I had, and no first name for her. So nothing until 2019, Governor Cuomo opened the records in New York, and I was able to send in my check and get the actual original. And so that had her first name, which was Charlotte. And that's like, wow. Now I don't know if she's alive or not, but at least I have her full name.
Had you not gone on Ancestry prior?
I had. And I had actually just only done Ancestry, and there was nothing closer than like third cousin at the time that I did it. So, and I think I did it in 2016 that I actually did the swab. So I tried to find a Charlotte Burgess, and I couldn't online. And I worked at at a search engine for a long time before Google, but it was one of the top search engines. So I know how to search. I know how to use the internet. So I've got this like journalism searching, research.
We may be calling you with some.
And I couldn't find her. I couldn't find anything. And then I sort of was like, I just don't know why. Maybe I do need to hire someone or try to go deeper into public records. And there was nothing. And I didn't even know if she was from New York or not. That's just where I was born.
Yeah.
But did give her address. So, but the address was the Booth house. So it wasn't,
felt like a dead end.
It's didn't give me much more than I already had gotten on my own. But it was good they opened the records. I think that was a huge move in the right direction. And it's really, they have to now because of the DNA stuff.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, what came first, the chicken or the egg with that, right? I feel like the states have a lot of pressure now because you can get your stuff on Ancestry and you can't get it on, or 23andMe, and you can't get it from your birth records. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah. And so you guys know you get these emails if you've taken these tests all the time. And it's like, we found a match. And it's like, here's another third cousin. It's someone that don't have no clue how I would even reach out to. And mid-August 2020, deep in the middle of this pandemic and everyone's sitting at home trying to figure out their lives.
Yeah.
Ancestry DNA says, oh, found a match. And I click on the email. I'm like, oh, here's another one. And it says mother child.
Ah.
And I was like,
wow. That must have just blown you away.
It was like the whole earth changed course.
Gosh.
My whole world just opened up in this weird way. And so it said Charlotte, but a different last name. So I was like, that's her. So, I mean, the science can't be wrong.
Yeah.
And so I reached out first through the Ancestry messaging platform, which, if you turn off notifications, you don't get it, or it goes to spam. So I didn't hear back. I gave it a week, and then I found her email through Spokio, which is where, basically, what, detectives probably would have gone to next. And wrote her an email and just said, hey, I got this match on Ancestry. I was born in this, hospital in 1966, and I believe you're my birth mom. And she wrote back. She's like, you got me. That's it. Yeah, that's me. And I've read this in I've done a ton of reading on adoption, but I've read this in a book recently where the feeling actually at the reunion is like you've been born again. Not religious, but just like you sort of, it is that sort of like a conversion-ish experience into a new way of seeing the world, or a new paradigm. I felt that way just with that email, like without even connecting with her physically. I told my parents that in a Zoom right after that, and was just, I was weeping and crying and telling them, and when I cry, my voice gets really tight and I'm small and whiny. It's very embarrassing. So I try not to do it much.
Were your adopted parents really supportive of this? Like they wanted to hear the whole thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's, I mean, for my adoptive dad, and I'm only saying that to differentiate him right now, but for my dad, he's always just wanted to be called my dad. The adoptive thing should just not even apply. And my mom was just, I think was the most ecstatic of anyone in my whole family that this was happening and that I found her. So that's been great that they were not only supportive, but just, really happy that I had at least reconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did your biological mom, when she went on Ancestry, was she kind of hoping you'd find her?
That's what I was wondering.
So
too.
Later I found out that, I have a cousin. So when I went on Ancestry and looked, it also has her family tree, like going back. And so someone has to go in and add, I think they're called leaves.
Yes.
So you have to go add those leaves like manually.
Yes.
And so a cousin had gone in and done that. So she's sort of like the Burgess genealogist. and traced it all the way back to the Boleyns in England.
Yeah.
So it was like this crazy royal line back to King Edward and things like that. So that was
You have to watch out for the Boleyns. I know a lot.
I know, yeah. So I've got
they got some racy stuff there.
I catch up on watching The Crown and see what's up with my family.
Yeah.
So we just exchanged. So the cousin thought this might bring Eric, not knowing that was my name, but one thing I found out is my birth mother wanted to name me Eric as well as my adoptive parents. Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
We just exchanged emails at first, and then a phone call, and planned a reunion, which we had just last month, or in August. Hopefully after the pandemic. We were talking in 2020 then about trying to push this to when things would be safer. It actually wasn't, but that's just the way it had to work out.
Mm-hmm.
So she told me more of the backstory. So she met this boy in Siena, Italy. They were both 21. She thought it was like Alberto or Alfredo something. She didn't remember his last name and wasn't even sure if she ever knew his last name. So it's that kind of like eat, pray, love, and then go home. So she doesn't remember a whole ton from that trip, but I don't know if it's more like repressed because it was not the best experience, or it was so long ago. 50 plus years. But she does remember being really sick on the boat back, which being pregnant and on a boat, can't imagine.
Even just the fact
and then
on the boat back.
Because that's how you mostly had to travel back then.
Yeah.
And then she went to the Booth house, felt a lot of sadness, shame, and I would imagine boredom. There's a book written in the first person, a memoir. I'm forgetting what it's called, but it was written in 1966 about a woman in one of these homes. And so it really gives a good example. And I had her read it, and she said, yeah, it's very much what it was like in this, all these pregnant girls going down to the shop for malteds, all together this group. And, it must have looked pretty crazy. She did get to hold me for a few days, so that primal wound is probably not as deep, I guess, because at least she did. And I don't really know what some hospitals, they whisk the baby away immediately, and don't want any connection.
That was me.
Yeah. So I just was kind of glad to know that. And it probably made it harder for her to let go.
I was gonna say, I think it makes it harder. That was my biological mom had that. I didn't know that, but for several days, and then I learned how that devastated her later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had.
So I did also just want to get that basic family medical information, at least from her half, and depression on top of the depression of being adopted. Depression runs in the family.
Mm-hmm.
I look most like a brother of hers that actually committed suicide, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
But depression, heart disease, diabetes, all seem to run in the family and are things to watch out for, which is good.
All the good stuff.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you got the loaded package.
Yeah. Why can't it be like, we all live to 110?
Yeah.
No. So, and again, that's only half the story. So the other half is Italian. I definitely have an Italian look. I have a Roman nose, as they say. And I definitely have, so it's only half Burgess. I have a half brother and sister. Her husband is deceased. The man she ended up marrying died a few years ago.
Is that when she went on Ancestry after
I believe
he died?
Though he did know about me. I found out later, but I think that also just maybe out of now that she also had a grandson who had a school project. So she took it so that he would be connected with her for school. So I think there was this back of the mind, I might find Eric, but this is also practical for school. And that is what turned me up. And she also had some Jewish ancestry in her background that was kept a secret. So it was like whispered that some like the grandmother was Jewish, the one from Poland, but never told anyone about it. So that actually does come up in the ancestry.com when you go to the genealogy, to the heritage part. There's a big chunk that for me was the Ashkenazi Jews.
Yeah.
As well as the Italian, was correct. And that was in there about, certain percentage North, South Italian, and some other Mediterranean.
Pretty fiery. You should be pretty fiery with the with Jewish and Italian mixed together.
I know, it's pretty crazy.
So then
I'm a good cook.
You got the email from her saying you got me, and so then there you go. What?
And she was filling in more of these details, just like the brother and sister. She still lived on Long Island. The brother lives on Long Island. The sister's in Seattle.
So she always stayed there. She was always in the area.
and she stayed very close to where she grew up her whole life. So she said, well, I guess I got to tell my family about you. And so she told the kids, and the way she put it, and one thing we all share, it seems, is a really pretty good sense of humor. But she wrote back and she said, well, I told them and they're fine with it. the way she put it, I was like, is that good or bad? Not really sure. And then she was telling her brothers, and they were like, oh yeah, we already knew about that. So she's like, so much for family secrets.
Wow. So this whole time that they knew about it, no one ever talked to her about it.
Yeah, she was thinking that somehow they bamboozled her brothers into thinking she was somewhere else for 9 months.
And they just gave her space and didn't ever bring it up.
Yeah. So
families are families,
which is why the cousin was more thinking I was going to pop up than I think even my birth mom.
Yeah.
So yeah, we planned that reunite, and we finally reunited in August. So I flew out there with my wife.
We sort of
Jana,
know about it because we watched you on
Facebook.
Facebook.
Some of it was live on Facebook.
It's
I
so cool to see.
So I took Jana, my wife, and Chandler, my son, and we all flew out there and we met. The first night was just her and my siblings, half siblings. And so it was just a small, more intimate. I mean, I've read about some reunions and just wanted to just let it go and let it play out however it plays out. But it was just that first hug with her, like finally touching each other again. A good, nice, long hug. And I said, hey, Mama. And then she said to call her Mama Charlie. So I said, Mama Charlie. And it says, good to be with you again. So it was, she brought us in, and then I met my brother, is like just a huge, tall guy, which I did not get that gene, unfortunately. And my half sister, who's looks kind of like she's like a model. She's really pretty. So this is like, and if you look at, I saw one picture of my birth mother when she was 21, or just after, I think, having me, and she had a real sort of Liz Taylor kind of vibe. So it's like good looking people, coming from this woman. So that was the very first impression. Everyone is super chill too. We met the larger family, but just got to know each other that first night. And it's funny because I would be talking to my siblings, and then Jana and Charlotte would be off in the corner, and Charlotte was just bawling, saying how much I looked like Tommy, and
I bet that was fun because she lost her brother, and you look like her.
Yeah, I it's funny because I grew up in Connecticut, so I wasn't too far away from her, but then I moved all over the country. Currently ended up in Los Angeles, so we had to cross the country and go see her in Long Island. Extended family came from upstate New York and Brooklyn, and so I got to meet uncles and cousins and their spouses and fiancés. So it was like 15 people in the room, I think.
Wow.
And what's Chandler do? What's Chandler circle. Think of this? He was, I think, I mean, the first thing that one of my cousins said is like, well, this is weird. We were all like, this is weird, but it's just crazy and amazing and was really fun.
Because
And
it's his
everyone
legacy
was,
too. I always
yeah.
think that, like, as adoptees, like Sarah has her son, I have my son, and you have your son, and you kind of forget, like, this is their legacy too. Like, we don't forget, but you kind of forget it's their story.
Mhm.
It's a strange.
He was, yeah, he was that.
I bet he was like taking it all in and just,
Yeah, and he
wow.
had so much to tell his friends when he went back to school. He's in college. He's a senior. So, yeah, I just won't ever forget that first hug. And then just sitting with that was like the biggest memory, and just feeling an emotion. It's like too many emotions to even describe. And then just sitting with that extended family in this huge circle in Charlotte's living room. And I just remember sitting there like almost a camera and just looking all around like the panoramic, and just saying like, this is like, again, it was like kind of like in that film about the primal wound, but this is like a whole world that I missed out on, but also that I'm so glad that I'm at least connecting with now. And we're in a little private Facebook group, and it's, you know, all are staying in touch with texts and emails and such. But we had feasts every day, extremely well fed, different sort of Long Island specialties each time. We started with Italian food, which was ironic, and then had some bagels and all different stuff. So it was really fun.
Oh yeah. Okay. I was just going to ask what, so you've stayed in touch and you're close, and it's only been a couple months, but nothing, no conflict. It was just like it's a great reunion story, right?
No, I was talking about, I think everyone was just really kind of chill. Everyone sort of, was just, I think everyone was really excited that this is happening. And I think that it's almost a different world than it even was a few years ago, where it might have been not just weird and funny to acknowledge how weird it is, but really uncomfortable. And it just was never uncomfortable. Everyone was just kind of relaxed and cracking jokes. Again, the sense of humor I mentioned, really funny, kind of nerdy. All of us are a little bit nerdy in our own way. And I got to look at photo albums on one of my last days there, which was really, really, really interesting, just because I feel like I looked more like some of her brothers than even some of the other, like my cousins. There's definitely family resemblance. Y'all saw the picture, so that I think there's definitely a lot of Burgess in me.
I want to know about
Italians
the
there
Italian.
too.
Did you find the Italian?
Yeah, so I took a bunch of other DNA tests, partly for the medical questions that I'm not getting from the Italian side. So I took 23andMe for that, because they give medical guidance or proclivities. And then I also took family tree DNA, CGI genetics is one, I think it's called. And then the one that I got lucky with was called MyHeritage.
Yeah, which we've never heard of, actually. I'd never heard of MyHeritage.
Yeah, Ancestry. So some of these companies have these, huge footprints in America and maybe England, but not Europe or other parts of the world. MyHeritage seems to have more of a footprint in Europe. And so it found I think it's either like cousin or second cousin, something like that. They're not ever sure exactly. But basically I matched with a cousin. So it was something like Nicholas Brutini in Siena, and that's where she went, Siena, Italy. So I'm like, oh my God, this is like my cousin. So like, he's got to at least know who my birth father is, but my birth father doesn't know I exist. So I can't just reach out and say, hey, I'm this guy that your dad or your uncle. So I just didn't even reach out to him at all. But I had the last name.
In Italy, in the 60s in Italy, there could have been a whole like slew of fun going on.
Yeah. Oh, can you imagine 1965? It would have been the summer or spring.
Talented Mr. Ripley era.
Oh God,
I can't
yeah.
imagine. I'm like, I can't imagine.
I can't blame them for, it wasn't quite the summer of love, but it was their summer of love.
Yeah.
So I went on Facebook and I tried an Alberto or Alfredo Brutini and found one in Siena. He's about the right age, but no response because Facebook messages, if you're not friends,
It goes
Right.
into other, and you may never see it. Yeah.
And half of that is, most of that is junk.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised. Then I'd searched the internet, back to the internet. I searched his name and I found that if it's the same guy, he had written a book. And not only that, but it was a book about slang that our grandparents used to use in Siena, not just Italy, but just the city. Siena is very enclosed in a way. It's sort of shut off from even the rest of Italy, but also to outsiders.
Yeah.
So, he, this guy on Facebook looks a bit like me. I had found a picture of him younger that looks a lot more like me, but it's hard to tell. I probably look a little more like my maternal grandfather, who was follically challenged as I am on the top, but close. I mean, I look a bit like him as far as the males I've been seeing that I might be related to. So I've got that book, and I wrote the publisher to see, this guy wrote this book about language, which is a man after my own heart to begin with.
I was going to say that's a really interesting connection there.
Yeah,
Just
it's like,
who you are.
if you remember like little phrases that your grandparents used to use, like, I mean, just stuff like, why are you in a funk? Or, just weird, just little sayings and stuff. So to preserve those so they aren't lost. That was a really intriguing project to me, to see that he had done that.
Yeah.
And I actually got the book just to say, hey, I ordered this book and I want to talk to the author so I could write the publisher. And they said, we don't have an email for him. I'm like, okay. So I don't know what else to do to reach out to him other than to try to get maybe someone over there to help, or to go over there once again this pandemic is under better control.
So
but again, to get the medical.
Are you not open to reaching out to the cousin on
that's
My
what
Heritage?
I was going to say, the cousin, Nicholas.
Yeah.
I might do so. Just it might be weird to just say your uncle had this.
Well, you don't even have to say that, right? You could just say, I think we're related.
What I did do in My Heritage, so the cousin had actually created his own little family tree, but it's all hidden from me because I'm not part of it. So it just says ? Brutini. So I clicked add me to the tree, and it says, reason why. And I said, we are cousins. And so
are you first cousins?
It's either first or second. I think they're not sure which.
Pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. So we share a lot of those, the chunks of DNA that help them match.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the closest match I've had. And I haven't had anyone in Italy at all match. So it was crazy that it was so direct. So I did click add me to your family tree because I'm your cousin, and I haven't gotten any response to that. So he would have gotten an email, or again, if you turn off your notifications, it's so I think trying to reach out, I could try to find him. He was not on Facebook, the cousin, but who I think my biological father is.
Did you send him a friend request?
It's turned off. Yeah, so it's like, God, I've been hitting these brick walls all the time, and having to climb over them. So
I feel like we're gonna get on
through to him. Yeah, you might need to stay tuned for a future update. But
yes, for sure.
The other thing is some of the medical stuff. But if he has other memories of Charlotte in that summer, and also I can claim Italian citizenship, which therefore means EU citizenship for me, Jana, my wife, and Chandler, my son.
That'd be really great.
Which is pretty insane. It's the Lex. It's just called the law of blood, and then the law of marriage. That's all you need, is just to be related by blood. But a DNA test doesn't count. He needs to sign papers saying, yes, this is my son. But more, probably most importantly, is Chandler's graduating next year. He's in school in Boston, so it'll be a chance for Charlotte to meet my parents and for everyone to get together.
That was actually what I was going to ask, if they have they Zoomed or anything.
they all want to meet. I think Zoom is just so weird.
It is, yeah.
It's just I never wanted to Zoom with her. We talked on the phone and did a lot of email and Facebooking and such, but it just seems so personal and impersonal at the same time.
Mhm.
It is. It's a strange thing.
We started like during the pandemic to try to do a weekly family Zoom, and it just was kind of crazy to keep it up. And it's really just become a necessity now rather than something I'd go to.
Well, that's exciting that they're all going to meet. So
I
you're
know
gonna
we
have to,
do
like,
updates.
obviously,
Yeah.
you better be back on Facebook by then. So we
Yeah,
can see.
no, I'm gonna get back
Unless
on
we're
it.
all off of Facebook after the most recent stuff.
So Sarah and I are going to start.
Yeah, I take a break on Facebook and then
pictures, so
everything falls apart.
Yeah.
we want the for our website, we're going to pictures. And for sure, we want those college pictures.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
and then we want some pictures, like, because we want to ask all our guests so it'd be really neat to put them up there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So definitely you have to keep us up to date. We know you will, because we're going to stay up with you, but we miss you on Facebook. Come back.
Well, I'll definitely come back to promote this show.
Okay, good.
This episode.
Yes, we'll let you know about that. But so thank you so much, Eric. I just love following the journey, but hearing it
Me too.
is even better. So we really appreciate
This
it. And
is
I'm
really
so
good.
happy it's a happy reunion story.
Yeah.
Me too.
Absolutely. Me too. Yeah. Happy
Yeah.
ending.
Yes.
But to be continued.
Yes. To be continued.
And thank you for sharing all of this with us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks. Keep it up.
Thanks. Yes.
Okay,
We'll talk soon.
We'll see you soon.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.